At 8:20 a.m. on April 18, 1942, a 31,000-pound Army bomber sat pointed at the Pacific Ocean with nothing under its wheels but 467 feet of wet, pitching steel. Lieutenant Colonel Jimmy Doolittle stood at the edge of USS Hornet's flight deck, flight helmet in his hand, watching green water explode over the bow. Somewhere beneath his boots, the carrier's engines drove the ship into a 40-knot headwind. Somewhere ahead, 650 miles to the west, sat Tokyo, confident, untouched, and absolutely certain that no American bomber could ever reach it. Naval engineers on the East Coast had already done the math. A fully loaded B-25 Mitchell needed around 3,600 feet of runway to get airborne. Doolittle had 467. On paper, what he was about to do wasn't difficult. It was impossible. 3 months earlier at Norfolk, they had written that impossibility into neat columns and careful notes. Weight, 31,000 pounds. Required airspeed, 90 miles an hour just to stagger into the air. Standard Army runway. Long, flat, unmoving. Now, swap that for a carrier deck shorter than a football field, heaving 15 degrees up and down in heavy seas, the bow vanishing into spray every few seconds. The quiet verdict from the engineering section was simple: suicide. But war doesn't care about neat columns. A submarine officer named Francis Lowe had looked down from an observation tower at Army bombers practicing over painted carrier outlines on a runway and asked the question no one else had. What if those bombers didn't just pretend to be on a carrier? What if they actually launched from one? The idea sprinted through the chain of command, collided with the hard limits of physics, and left only one survivor: the B-25 Mitchell, chosen not because it was ideal, but because every other bomber failed sooner. They stripped the lower turrets, crammed every spare space with fuel tanks, and trained a hand-picked group of Army pilots on short-field takeoffs in Florida, using white lines on concrete to mimic the cramped deck of a carrier. Some pilots lifted 30-ton bombers off 500-foot strips. Some didn't. The ones who couldn't were quietly pulled from the roster. The aircraft that broke were quietly replaced. No one was told where they were actually going. Now the secret was over. At dawn that morning, a Japanese picket boat had spotted the task force and gotten a warning out before a cruiser's 6-inch shells erased it. Instead of launching 400 miles off Japan, Doolittle and his men would have to go 650. There would be no returning to the carrier. No safety margin. Bomb Tokyo, then fly west until fuel and luck ran out over China. Doolittle had insisted on going first. As mission commander, he would take the shortest deck run, with 15 more bombers stacked behind him, noses almost touching the island. If he failed, if his Mitchell went into the sea, the deck crew would shove his wreckage overboard and signal the next pilot forward. The mission mattered more than the man. He climbed into the left seat, strapped in, and wrapped his hand around the throttles. Ahead of him, the bow rose and fell like the end of a diving board over 6 stories of empty air. Beside the runway calculations and safety tables back at Norfolk, a Navy engineer had written one quiet word in the margin: suicide. Doolittle pushed the throttles forward anyway.